Hi! Hello everyone, this is Aegon of Astora, and welcome back to my blind playthrough of Elden Ring. This is episode number 30 being recorded on Tuesday the 31st of January, 2023, and I hope you're all having a fantastic day whenever it is you find yourself watching this. So even though it's most likely been just a week for you, it's been quite some time for me. In fact, almost 3 months. The last episode was recorded on Saturday, November 12th. And the reason for that, of course, is that my daughter was born on Sunday, November 13th. I'm obviously extremely happy. And, it's been a significant transition and shift to a completely different phase in my life. And same for my wife as well. But yeah, couldn't be happier. Obviously, it took a while till I was able to actually get back to recording or spending any amount of time doing playthrough or YouTube related things. But, I'm here now and hoping that I will be able to continue being here with some measure of consistency. But I do have a ton of notes here. Because after my daughter was born, and so I guess instead of referring to her simply as my daughter, I thought about this. I'm not sure that I'm ready to reveal what her actual name is just yet on the channel for, various reasons, just privacy in general. But yeah, in terms of, I thought it might be fun to come up with a pseudonym for her in the same way that I'm obviously I refer to myself on the channel as Aegon of Astora. And in honor of Jellyfish Friend, I've decided that I will refer to my daughter on the channel as Aurelia of Astora. So, yeah, when I came up with that, I was pretty pleased with that. So, yeah, Aurelia of Astora is how I'll be referring to my daughter from now on, as distinct from Aurelia Jellyfish Friend. So, I hope that's not too confusing for those who have already skipped this segment. But I guess, yeah, too bad for them. So, yeah, as I mentioned, I knew it would be a while before I was able to record again after Aurelia of Astora was born. So I decided to start releasing episodes from the playthrough early, and that obviously goes against what my original plan was, which was, I wanted to record all of the episodes and then just release the playthrough after it had been completed. So those disclaimers still appear through at the start of most of the episodes, but obviously it doesn't apply anymore. So, it's fine. I've been reading the comments very cautiously and skipping over those that contain very obvious spoilers. So, it's possible that maybe there are one or two things that I'm aware of now that I wasn't before. But in the overall, I think given that 98% or something of this playthrough is blind, yeah, I don't think that's a big deal personally. But paradoxically, even though I've had basically no time whatsoever in which to record new episodes since Aurelia of Astora was born, I've had a lot of idle time in which to think about the game. So, there are times when I was serving as a mattress for Aurelia of Astora, or bouncing on a ball trying to put her to sleep, or driving to the store to pick up diapers and groceries. And, I spent that time, in part at least, thinking about Elden Ring, thinking about and rewatching old episodes before releasing them. And that means that even though I've not played the game for almost 3 months, I have a ton of notes to go over that I've been sort of just taking along the way as I've been thinking about the game and the story and rewatching old episodes and noticing things that maybe I didn't notice the first time around while actually recording those episodes. So most of these notes came to me organically based on reviewing old episodes again and editing new ones, but a few of them are thanks to the comments section, which I'll get to in just a few minutes. So the first couple of notes I have here are, I guess, miscellaneous notes. Just, again, things I jotted down in no particular order over the course of just thinking about the game while not playing and rewatching old episodes and editing the, last handful that I recorded. And the first one has to do with the idea of the lands between. And I think I hinted at this over the course of this playthrough, but I don't think I ever really made this point explicit. And that is there was a theory at some point about Dark Souls 2 in which the theme of forgetting was used to make sense of how the various areas in Dark Souls 2 fit together, because during the development of Dark Souls 2, Majula went from being a hub area that was disconnected from the rest of the game world to one that was physically connected to those areas. But in some cases, the result of that was areas that didn't fit together in the way that you might imagine they would. So for instance, it made no sense how we traveled from Earthen Peak to Iron Keep. You went up in an elevator and then suddenly there was lava, and it just physically, the geography of it, the geology of it did not make any sense. So earlier in the playthrough, I suggested that the open world areas in the game were basically those areas we skipped in earlier games. The areas between lands. In other words, the lands between. So maybe that theory isn't so crazy after all, because it's literally in the name. It's the lands between the more traditional areas from the earlier Souls games. So I think that makes sense. The second miscellaneous note I have here is about the scarabs. And it's a line from the item description that I sort of read over but didn't fully process previously, which is that scarabs roll clumps of ashes of war during their labors. So in other words, I believe this is specifically from the headpiece for the Ash of War scarab. But basically, what this is suggesting is that they accidentally absorb the techniques that are somehow embedded in the ashes of fallen soldiers. This speaks, I think, to the massive scale of the shattering, as these creatures essentially pick up traces of the war from just going about their daily business. There are remnants of this war everywhere, as these poor, just scarabs that have no idea what they're doing, but they roll up these balls just doing their own thing and then end up creating these clumps of memories of the previous of the shattering of the war that happened on the land on which they're doing their labors. And yeah, I just thought that was a really, really interesting touch, and the significance of that was something that I sort of glossed over in earlier episodes, so I just thought I would mention it here. So as for the comments section, there are a few comments I wanted to address in this episode, and so I'm not going to read I'm not going to read all of the comments out in full. I will mention the names of the people who left these comments, and unlike in Let's Talk Lore, which obviously those episodes take a lot longer to put together, I'm not going to be putting the comments on the screen or anything like that, but yeah, I will be mentioning who left particular comments and reading one or two comments in particular. But the first comment I wanted to point out, which would have been on the second or third episode of this series, was a number of people pointed this out, including Chrissy Carpenter, Lace, Jeremy Posadas, Mia, and Rince Windis, which is that I went on and on in my analysis of the intro cinematic, comparing the Night of the Long Knives to the Night of the Broken Glass, or Kristallnacht, when in fact what I was thinking of was more likely Night of the Long Knives, or as it's otherwise known, the Beer Hall Putsch, in which Adolf Hitler and his cronies in the Nazi Party consolidated power within the party by, murdering a bunch of their rivals. So, it's really, really interesting because obviously when I learned about Kristallnacht, I also learned about the Night of the Long Knives. And amazingly, I didn't actually write down the episode. I probably should have, but one of the episodes it was either in Liurnia of the Lakes or Weeping Peninsula, I actually mentioned Night of the Long Knives instead of Night of the Broken Glass. So it was in my mind in the same sort of general area, but for one reason or another, when I talked about it explicitly and intentionally in that earlier episode, my mind only went as far as Kristallnacht, but didn't actually go a little bit further to Night of the Long Knives, which is a much more obvious parallel. But then at one point in a later episode, before I had even posted any of these episodes, so it wasn't like I was thinking about the comment and then mentioned Night of the Long Knives without, crediting the comment. It was something that was clearly in the same region of my mind, to the point where I mentioned it without even realizing I was mentioning a different event. So anyways, I'm only pointing that out because, yeah, it's a much more obvious parallel, Knight of the Long Knives versus Knight of the Black Knives, as opposed to Knight of the Black Knives versus Knight of the Broken Glass. So yeah, it makes a lot more sense. I just wanted to thank those of you who raised it. And yeah, just to point to the somewhat silly nature of our brains and our minds and how our memory works, because clearly I was, thinking around that area, but for some reason, yeah, I didn't actually explicitly identify Knight of the Long Knives as the more obvious parallel, although I did do so unintentionally or accidentally later on. So the next comment is from a user whose name I'm probably going to butcher, so please accept my apologies for that. But Tomor Batar mentioned that the compass is an extra textual tool in the game because it's not associated with an item description. And I think that's a tremendous point. So I complained maybe complained isn't quite the right word, but earlier in this playthrough in the first episode, I believe I mentioned that the compass is kind of a weird thing in a FromSoft game because it suggests that the world conforms to natural laws in a way that doesn't really follow the previous Souls games. But Tomor brings up a tremendous point here, which is that you might file this particular feature under the same category as the life bars that you see for bosses, because that's not something, there's no item description which explains why the player character is able to see how much HP a boss has left. It's just a gameplay element that is in the game, and you're not really supposed to think too much about it. In other words, it is in that tiny region. We had this gameplay lore integration chart all the way back in Bloodborne, and we talked about it in Dark Souls 3 Let's Talk Lore, where you can get very, very close to fully integrating gameplay and lore, but there's always going to be that little bit that you can't fully integrate because, at the end of the day, you're holding a controller, you're playing a video game, so you can't fully integrate gameplay and lore, and this is just another example of that. And of course, it's a necessity from a gameplay perspective, but that's obviously not something I was aware of because I literally just started the game. So a few people took exception to my having pointed that out, but yeah, I'm not really sure what they were expecting. Clearly they're not 100% familiar with what we typically do on this channel, which is that sort of pedantic stuff. So yeah, I don't imagine they're still around anyway after 29 odd episodes of that type of commentary, but here we are, and thank you to those of you who are still around. So this next comment I actually did note before I received comments to this effect, but again, this is with respect to my analysis of the intro cinematic from the second episode, and something that Terra's Watch Stuff pointed out, which, yeah, again, after several episodes, I realized this, and realized, even though I don't think I ever actually pointed this out in the playthrough itself, that in my analysis, I was describing Horlo, Gideon Ofnir, Goldmask, the Loathsome Dung Eater, and Fia the Deathbed Companion as being somewhat akin to the Lord Soul bosses from the Souls games, when in fact, those are the other Tarnished who have been called upon to become champions en route to reunifying the Elden Ring. So this is just like we saw in Dark Souls 3 with Henri, who was charged with bringing Aldrich's cinders back to their throne. Likewise with Hawkwood and the Abyss Watchers, Sigvard and Yorm, and the Ashen One, who was charged with bringing back the ashes of Prince Lothric. So this is, I think, something very similar that is happening here. I don't know if these champions are meant to be associated with particular runes. I suppose that would make sense. At least I'm thinking about the example of Goldmask, that Brother Corrin went to the Altus Plateau seeking out Goldmask. So maybe, I'm thinking just out loud here, maybe Goldmask is the champion who was charged with reunifying or retrieving that particular aspect of the Elden Ring. I'm not sure, but yeah, I wanted to acknowledge this comment and point out, because I don't think I had done that up to this point, that yeah, it was kind of silly of me to equate those things and then not sort of go back and correct myself later on. So yeah, obviously those are the champions in the same way that the Ashen ones in Dark Souls 3 were meant to go and get particular Lord Souls. So Centigraphs pointed out something that I wanted to bang my head against the wall, or at least facepalm, which is that you can just crack open Alluring Skulls by rolling into them. Oh, so much wasted time. So much wasted time. Thank you, Centigraphs. I appreciate that. The next comment comes from Ackley, who pointed out, another thing, I spent episodes and episodes and episodes just, well, guys, I don't understand what this debuff is here. What is this debuff? It's not associated with any rings or anything. What is this? And yes, if you go back and watch that episode, you can kind of see, and I guess in my defense, the fact that I'm playing with auto hide HUD did kind of make this a little bit more difficult to detect, because I think if you're playing with the HUD on, showing always on, then you would probably see the health bar shrink. At least I think it would be a bit more obvious. So yeah, we have an HP debuff via the fact that we snuggled with Fia, the Deathbed Companion. So I don't know how to undo that, but maybe we'll try that a little bit later on in this episode. By the way, I don't know what the heck we're doing in this episode. I want to say that we're going to call this Caelid 2, but we have so many additional things to get through in my notes here, so I don't know how much additional time we'll actually have for that, but we shall see. There were also some unexpected controversies. So this is me, just reflecting over time after releasing the first batch of initial episodes on some of the things that I expected people to be annoyed about and some of the things that I didn't expect people to be annoyed about. And the first one that, I really did not expect was people to be so annoyed about me disabling tutorials. And in retrospect, probably not the best decision. But, I've played a number of Souls games, and really, ultimately, it didn't make much of a difference. The only difference it really made was that I spent several episodes asking and saying out loud, I wonder how you do this, I wonder how you do that. But I think in complaining about me disabling the tutorials, I think people were thinking, if only Aegon hadn't disabled the tutorials, he wouldn't be asking these things out loud. And, I hate to admit this, but I think you're giving me a bit too much credit. Because even if those tutorials had remained enabled, I don't think I think I still would have been wondering about those things. I still would have been asking those questions out loud. I still would not have realized how to do certain things, because what I think what gets lost in them having this unbridled rage about me not realizing how the game works despite playing it blind is that I'm recording these episodes in, busy periods of my life when, there's 1 or 2 weeks in between a recording session. And, some of it's inconsistent and uneven, right? There were some episodes where I recorded, one episode and then the next episode the following day. And then some episodes that were recorded 3 weeks apart. So you have to keep in mind that even if I had the tutorials activated, had I not deactivated the tutorials, I should say, it's likely that I would have screwed up things anyway. And then it's likely that I would have been asking aloud, gee, I wonder how you do this, even though it was obviously telegraphed and clearly explained in a tutorial. And to my point, I went back on numerous occasions and actually read through the tutorial messages that are sort of kept in your inventory. And even then, I didn't really know what I was doing. Even then, I was asking obvious questions that I should have known having read those inventory items. So anyways, I'm not upset about it or anything. I found it interesting and surprising that people were so up in arms about me having disabled the tutorials, because I think ultimately it didn't really make all that much of a difference. My utilization of torrent is another good example of this, because people were so aghast that I wasn't double jumping, or first that I wasn't using torrent, and then second that I wasn't double jumping with torrent. People were concerned that I wasn't going to realize that you could jump on the air springs, whatever they're called, to break your fall, or using them to leap high up into the air. Those are all things I figured out eventually. And so I think it speaks to FromSoft's game design. And that really is the reason underlying why I disabled those tutorials, is that historically speaking, FromSoft, they haven't always done a great job of this, but they have to some degree telegraphed how you use certain items and how you use or should, ought to utilize certain mechanics in their games without the player having to read them on a message or, to have them telegraphed in a tutorial. So, my expectation of this game as a FromSoft game, as what is essentially a Souls game, was more or less that the same thing would happen. And, I think to my credit, it did. There were certain things that I, asked about repeatedly, and it took me forever to figure it out, but I did eventually figure it all out. So, yeah, anyways, that's my perspective on that. And so the next item is something that I really did not expect to be, again, so controversial, which is the fact that I'm playing online. And so first, let me just say that the reason I'm playing online is first and foremost because that's how FromSoft intended for the game to be played. FromSoft did not intend for the game to be played offline. If FromSoft intended for the game to be played offline, then it would have been the default setting. But of course, the default setting is playing online. So, I think it's silly to suggest that you should be, and maybe there's something to be said for playing the game. And we saw this in the couple of episodes in which I was not online for, because my internet was down or something. You do end up really relying on messages for various different things. But at the same time, again, that's how FromSoft intended for the game to be played. So, I don't really see any reason why I shouldn't be playing online. And so, there were a few comments, and so I guess I'll address the substance of the specific comments I'm referencing. So Eve wrote, and this is a direct quote, "Playing online is a bad idea for a first playthrough." And also, why would you play online? This is a separate comment by Eve as well. "Why would you play online if you want a lore-focused blind playthrough? The messages spoil so much, it's not really blind anymore. Plus, there's really some stuff you're more likely to miss if you play online." And so, I'm grateful for these comments, but I really don't agree with this at all, because especially with the suggestion that if you're playing, you shouldn't be playing online if you want a lore-focused blind playthrough, because, maybe there are certain messages I've read that someone who is familiar with the game might be like, oh yeah, that's in reference to this specific aspect of the lore. But I really don't, I don't see how finger ahead, therefore butthole is a lore spoiler. Like, it's obviously an extreme example, but the limitations that are baked into FromSoft's messaging system are such that you can't directly explain to someone the lore behind a particular item or character or NPC or whatever. Like, I'm sorry, I think this is an absurd suggestion that playing online somehow makes it not an appropriately blind lore-focused playthrough. I don't agree with that suggestion at all. But yeah, anyways, the next comment was from Film Acolyte, who wrote, and this is again, I'm directly quoting the comment, "I think it's interesting that he played this in advance because he didn't want to be spoiled, then proceeded to play online only to end up getting spoiled by the messages. Lobos ended up playing offline for this very reason." Okay, so again, to be clear, this is not a challenge run. This is a blind playthrough. And a blind playthrough is exactly what it sounds like. You're playing the game without reading things online, without watching other people having played it, without looking up, having a strategy guide. That's what a blind playthrough is. And I was very clear about what this playthrough was going to be from the outset. I was very explicit in explaining the parameters of what I understand to be a blind playthrough. This is a blind playthrough. It's not a challenge run. So, yeah, anyways, I'm grateful for these comments, and I'm grateful for anyone who comments over the course of this playthrough, but I don't understand the suggestion that this playthrough, the integrity of this blind playthrough, has somehow been compromised by virtue of the fact that I've played online. Lobos Jr., great, good for him that he played offline for his first playthrough, and that he did it to sort of create this experience in which he is the one solely responsible for figuring out the game world. Except that Lobos Jr. is, to the best of my knowledge, I don't really pay much attention anymore, but back in the day, my understanding was that Lobos Jr. was a full-time Twitch streamer. I am not a full-time Twitch streamer. I don't have time to grope my way around in the game world, nor would I want to. That, in my view, is, to some degree anyway, a challenge run, especially if you're doing that during your first playthrough. Lobos Jr. is, in my view, a challenge runner. So he can do these things. He's a full-time Twitch streamer. I only have so much free time these days, and I'm not going to spend that time time groping my way around to conform to someone else's idea of what constitutes a blind playthrough, when my understanding of a blind playthrough is something completely different. And that is, you're playing the game without watching other people having played it. You're not engaging in discussions online with other people about the story. You're not watching trailers. I specifically blocked out all the things that I consider as running counter to a blind playthrough. This is also why I'm maintaining a distance between the recording of episodes and actually having those episodes released to the public, because I don't want, even though I don't want to wait until this playthrough is completely finished to release all the episodes, despite that having been my original plan, which obviously the plan had to change because I realized how massive the game is, but also I realized that being a father means that it's going to take a lot longer for me to record the remaining episodes, and I just didn't want to sit on the episodes forever. But yeah, I'm just repeating myself now, but obviously I was very clear from the outset about what constituted a blind playthrough in my eyes, and that's what I'm doing. One final point that just came to me actually is that the mention of Lobos Jr. as somehow being, the fact that he's playing offline made his blind playthrough a little bit more true than my blind playthrough. The only reason I'm hesitating here is that I've not actually verified this, but my assumption, just given history and streamers like Lobos Jr. and the big YouTubers, VaatiVidya and the like, these are all people who usually end up with pre-release versions of the game. And, usually it's just the network tests, of course, but these are people with some measure of access to the game that I don't have. These are people who usually watch trailers. These are people who usually interact with their viewers in a way that the viewers are so they're exposed to elements of the game before having played the game that I was not exposed to. So maybe it's just different degrees of a blind playthrough, different perspectives on a blind playthrough. So I respect that there are differences of opinion of what constitutes a blind playthrough. But in the same way that you could say that my playthrough isn't blind because I'm playing online and reading messages, you could also say the same about people like Lobos who were exposed to pre-release stuff in a manner that I was not. Personally, I don't think that makes it necessarily less of a blind playthrough. I don't know why this suggestion has been made that this playthrough is somehow less blind, but anyways. The final thing I'll say about this is with respect to a comment left by Brett Hopper88. This is me paraphrasing their comment, but they basically said playing online is for New Game Plus or second builds. So again, I only have so much free time, and so I don't actually know if I will ever have time to do New Game Plus or a second build. So maybe being a parent gets a lot easier when your child is 1 or 2 years old or 3 years old and you have a ton more free time. But as it stands, I'm not a grad student anymore. My life is a lot different than it was when I had full roster of builds in Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3 and Bloodborne. My life looks a lot different now than it did then. And so I don't know to what degree I will be able to play through New Game Plus or create a second build or do Let's Talk Lore for this game. I wouldn't rule those things out, but, so to suggest that I should wait to play online for New Game Plus or a second build is to, again, not fully grasp what my life looks like now, and that I'm doing this playthrough with the very limited spare time that I have because of the fact that, as I mentioned in the very first episode, this might be sort of my last hurrah as far as YouTube is concerned. So again, I don't mean to come across as overly defensive in this segment, but I certainly put a lot of thought and effort into specifically avoiding spoilers and specifically doing this playthrough in a way that avoided spoilers and avoided compromising what I would consider the blind aspects of the playthrough. Again, I respect that there are differences of opinion on this point, but I'm just repeating myself over and over and over again. So let's move on. So the second to last unexpected controversy with respect to things that I said and did over the course of this playthrough is, I suppose this would be the opposite. So the things I expected to be more controversial, but they weren't, which is I expected a lot of people to be a lot more annoyed about the fact that it took me 10 episodes to realize that you can equip talismans and how to equip talismans. And yeah, because that is something that I found ridiculous upon rewatching the early parts of this playthrough, where I kept picking these things up and I'm like, gee, I guess we'll figure out how to equip that later. Yeah, so it's funny because I don't think that really started coming up in the comments until episode 8 or 9 or something. So I expected that to be a point of contention much earlier than it actually was. Okay, so the last comment we're going to address today, a couple of comments actually, are with respect to another unexpected controversy based on something I said, which is how I characterized Kenneth Haight as a racist. And this is something that was commented on by both Derek Jones and Moo Cow Ribs. And, I'm not reading the comments verbatim here, but essentially I believe what Derek Jones said is that if you follow Kenneth Haight's character arc, then you'll realize that he is not racist. But of course, I've not completed his arc, so all I really had to go on when I made that comment, and perhaps I was a bit overzealous or over-enthusiastic in branding him as a racist, despite not having completed his arc. But all I really had to go by at that point in time was the things he was saying and the way he was behaving. So this isn't necessarily to even say that Kenneth Haight is a bad person, because obviously it's more complicated than that. But he has undoubtedly, at least based on the couple of interactions we've had with him, he's undoubtedly internalized a form of racism that is systemic to the world in which Elden Ring takes place. I don't think racism is always explicit and in your face. And in fact, I would argue that today in the 21st century that more often racism is veiled. It's read between the lines. It's reproduced discursively and expressed discursively. And, I thought about different examples of this that I could discuss. And one that actually came to mind was Mitch L., who is a YouTuber. I don't know if he still makes videos or not, but he was on this channel a couple of times. And at no point in his guest appearances on my channel did I ever think, hey, this guy seems kind of racist, or, he has racist ideas. At no point did he make any statements which suggested that that's something I should be aware of, that he has these beliefs. But in 2017, and the reason I remember this is, obviously it was a major shock to me, but I remember where I was. I was in North Vancouver in British Columbia doing my doctoral research in an Airbnb, just looking on YouTube to see what was going on YouTube. And I saw that Mitch L. had posted a video in which he described himself as an identitarian and declared his support for the notion, essentially, of racially segregated nation states. So in other words, what he's saying, my daughter is half Indian. My daughter Aurelia of Astora, she's half Indian. So I don't know what that would mean in a world in which identitarians had their way, but I imagine it would mean that my daughter would either have no nation state to call home, or she would be relegated to some second substandard nation state in which mixed race children could live. So, obviously I'm simplifying things a bit, but that is essentially the idea that was conveyed in that video. And, I can't point you to the video anymore because he deleted it, because he didn't come right out and say, hey, I'm racist, but he tried instead to come out of the closet, so to speak, by tethering his ideas to an intellectual veneer or ideological framework by way of the notion of identitarianism. That didn't work, so, of course, again, he deleted the video, and I don't know that he makes videos anymore. I don't know. I don't care. I don't really look. And I've not spoken to him since he released that video. But, that's an example, and one that, perhaps I've still not fully processed the trauma associated with seeing him having posted that video, knowing that he was on my channel on 2 separate occasions. But this is what racism is in the 21st century. The vast majority of racists, or people who hold racist ideas, either don't realize they're racist, or they know just enough about what constitutes racism such that they know enough to not be explicitly racist. Again, I'm repeating myself, but I think it bears repeating because it's so rare nowadays that you have someone who actually is racist and owns the fact that they're a racist. So, yeah, again, I'm not suggesting that Kenneth Haight is an identitarian or anything like that, but what I'm saying is that racists know deep down that explicit racism is, today, problematic, and, call it cancel culture or whatever. They don't typically, unless in particular circumstances, they're not usually comfortable with expressing those ideas openly. But sometimes even the most well-meaning people can unwittingly perpetuate racist ideas simply because they are a reflection of the systemically racist society of which they are a part. To show you what I mean, let's back up and consider Kenneth Haight's dialogue. "Ah, you've come to lend me your aid, have you? Well, that's very kind, but no. The help is very much appreciated, even from a tarnished." So, right away, he's taken aback by the fact that he's being rescued by a mere tarnished. Presumably, he expected to be rescued by someone he considers an equal in terms of their race. He's clearly being grateful to us for rescuing him, of course, but he's barely able to hide his disdain for the tarnished, who he clearly considers an inferior race. And then he goes on to say, "Despite appearances, nobility is no prerequisite to serving the true order." Again, you have to read between the lines here, but he's effectively dismissing the possibility that we come from nobility. Granted, this could just be because he recognizes that in this world, a tarnished is, by definition, not from a noble background. In any case, this is really no different than what you might call something like colonialism or imperialism. Consider Catholicism, for example. I was raised as a Catholic, so that's the only reason I'm picking on Catholicism here, or at least that's one of the reasons, but Catholicism is obviously a global religion, and they welcome anyone and everyone to become Catholic. Now, I'm not a theologian or anything like that, but my understanding is that historically, the spread of Catholicism was always entangled with imperialism and colonialism, which is how Catholicism gained a significant presence throughout Africa, where 1 in 5 people today is a Catholic. So the Catholic Church is obviously keen to add people to their ranks from Africa, but how many African Catholics have become Pope? Statistically speaking, and I know it's much more complicated than this, but statistically speaking, you might expect that, given that something like 10% of Catholics are in Africa, you might expect that something like 1 in 10 or 1 in 15 popes would be African. And yet, there has never been an African pope, or a racialized pope for that matter. People of color can serve the Catholic Church, in other words, but they cannot become the Catholic Church. This is due in no small part to the persistence of systemic anti-black racism within the Catholic Church and in society more broadly. "You might have heard of me, Kenneth Haight. Next in line is the rightful ruler of Limgrave." So what he's essentially saying here is that, in stark contrast to us, lowly tarnished, he is not only accepted by the establishment, he is the establishment. And then later, Kenneth Haight goes on to say, "Right then, time for me to head to the fort. I've much to do. First, I'll have to re-establish communication with the demi-humans." "What's that look? You don't believe me? Well, under the Erd Tree, co-mingling with the demi-humans is made possible." Now, this is a crucial point. Notice how he is suggesting, on the one hand, that demi-humans and humans are equal. However, he places conditions on that equality. He suggests, in other words, that equality is only possible under the Erd Tree, which is to say that it's only possible in the context of the associated spiritual or religious order. Granted, it's possible that he's referencing some aspect of the physical cosmology of the world that I've not yet understood or encountered. He could be saying, in other words, that the Erd Tree literally granted consciousness to beings that didn't otherwise possess consciousness. I think, based on his next line of dialogue, however, that it's more likely that he's discussing the religious order. Indeed, he goes on to say that, "Even the vulgar should not be left behind, under the rule of true order." Once more, he's placing conditions on equality. It is only under the rule of true order that the vulgar will be cared for. So, okay, let's look at the definition of vulgar. It's an adjective which means lacking in sophistication or good taste, unrefined, making explicit and offensive reference to sex or bodily functions, coarse and rude, or as a dated definition, which is often the one that are being used in FromSoft games, characteristic of or belonging to the masses. So it's here where maybe you could say that Kenneth Haight isn't actually a racist, that maybe he's classist, and we'll return to that in just a minute. But in returning to this notion of the true order, Kenneth Haight goes on to say, "Which is why I, Kenneth Haight, next in line as the rightful ruler of Limgrave, have sworn to uphold it." So the "it" he's referencing again is the rule of true order. But what he's suggesting in saying that is that he plans to help the downtrodden by maintaining the very system that is responsible for their oppression. He wants equality, but only by maintaining unequal power relations. He wants demi-humans and humans to exist in harmony, but that can only happen if he is able to secure his birthright. In this way, Kenneth Haight is, to borrow a term from French philosopher Jacques Rancière, a pedagogue of progress. That is, Jacques Rancière argued that, quote, equality is not a goal that governments and societies should succeed in reaching. To pose equality as a goal is to hand it over to the pedagogues of progress, who widen endlessly the distance they promise they will abolish. Equality is a presupposition, an initial axiom, or it is nothing. According to Kenneth Haight, however, it is only under the Erd Tree that it becomes possible to have equal relations. This was essentially the same logic that the government of Canada used in creating a residential school system for Indigenous children. The idea behind these schools was that Indigenous children needed to be civilized. These residential schools were jointly run by the government and various different Christian churches, and all those involved in administering the schools treated Indigenous children as subhuman beings who needed to be reformed in order to be considered equal to white people. This mistaken belief had disastrous consequences for Indigenous communities in Canada, as countless Indigenous children were physically, mentally, emotionally, and sexually abused, and many were killed. Even today, mass graves of Indigenous children are still being discovered at the sites of former residential schools. So again, I'm pointing all of this out not to shame people for liking Kenneth Haight, but to be clear about what constitutes racism, and to point out that even the most well-meaning people can be kind of racist by virtue of their inability to perceive uneven power relations, or their refusal to think critically about systemic issues. So finally, having said all of that, is Kenneth Haight racist? So the definition of racist, as a noun, refers to prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual, community, or institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized. Also, the belief that different races possess distinct characteristics, abilities, or qualities, especially so as to distinguish them as inferior or superior to one another. So, according to this definition, and based on my brief interaction with Kenneth Haight in that episode, I think he very clearly qualifies as a racist. He's prejudiced against the tarnished and seemingly against demi-human, and he does believe that they are inherently inferior despite promising to make equality a priority under his rule. At minimum, he's a classist, but when class is based on race, as it very clearly is in this society, racism and classism are one and the same. And to be clear, I do think this is all intentional on FromSoft's part. All of this is to say that I don't just throw around these words willy-nilly. I characterize Kenneth Haight as a racist following our first encounter with him because it's based on my understanding of the discursive processes through which systemic racism and other forms of oppression come to be perpetuated. And maybe by the end of his story arc, he'll prove me wrong, but based on that first encounter, I think it's undeniable that he comes across as a racist. Or to put a more nuanced spin on it, he comes across as a pedagogue of progress, someone who intentionally or otherwise dangles equality in front of the oppressed like a carrot on a stick. In my view, however, to echo Rancière one last time, equality is an axiom, or it is nothing. The next thing on my list is Sorceress Sellen and the puppets. And so this is something that, I've been thinking about a lot because it's something that still I'm very confused about. But Sorceress Sellen appears to be one of Soluvis's puppets, but I'm still trying to make sense of how Sellen exists in two places at once. So how does the puppet exist at the same time as the one that teaches us sorceries? Now, of course, this is not unprecedented in Souls games. In Dark Souls 3, for instance, you can make Night Slayer Sorig fight himself. I made a funny, or at least I thought it was a funny video, about whether Night Slayer Sorig can kill himself. and that is to say whether the Nightslayer Sorg you summon can defeat the NPC Nightslayer Sorg. But I don't know how to make sense of the Sorceress Sellen thing within the cosmology of this particular game. So one possible explanation I came up with is that it could be in line with something that occurs in Halo 4. In that game, Master Chief meets and has a conversation with a character named the Librarian, an elite member of the Forerunner species, a species that was at the point in time that Halo 4 takes place, they've been long dead for thousands of years or something like that. So Master Chief in this scene is not actually speaking with the Librarian, he's speaking with what is described as her essence. In other words, Master Chief is speaking to a sort of AI chatbot of the Librarian, who is programmed to respond to a limited number of prompts and statements, but not much beyond that. So maybe, I was thinking, just maybe, the Sellen who's selling a sorcery is simply a chatbot version of Sellen, and that the other Sellen, the one who is talking about people torturing her, is tragically, seemingly, the real Sellen. I have no idea how we're supposed to free her though, and I do wonder if we might have to take out Saluvis at some point, so that he clears off some of the items on his plate and lets go of some of his puppets. But yeah, I wonder. I really not sure, but I suppose we may potentially see later on. Oh, and on that note, I actually previously suggested that the weather balloons were probably gathering intel for the Academy of Raya Lucaria. Given what we know, however, I think it's more likely at this point that the weather balloons are actually in the employ of Celavis. So yeah, that's a thing. I don't know what to do with that information, but yeah. Anyways, the next item on my list came to me when rewatching some of my earlier conversations, my initial conversations with Melina, and I was struck by something she said about having memories inside the Erd Tree. And then when warping to the Divine Bridge in Lyondale, I wanted to see if you could farm that large golem sentinel friend who spawned here. Realized that you couldn't do it, but I noticed, in doing so, now that we're closer to the Erd Tree here than at any other area in the game, I noticed what looks almost like a door leading inside the Erd Tree. When thinking about this, I thought back to that statue of Radagon, which is supposed to be a hint about his fate. It looks like he's being consumed by roots, or that he's imprisoned within the Erd Tree itself. At minimum, it's looking like we will be entering the Erd Tree at some point in this game, whether it's the equivalent of the Kiln of the First Flame or an entirely new area of the world, however, obviously remains an open question. So after thinking about this a little bit more, I decided to create a list of characters, NPCs, and bosses so that I'm not constantly forgetting who the major players are in the story and who did what at what point in the world's history. I'm also working on a flowchart to better understand the chronology of events leading to the present of the game, but this is very, very preliminary work, as you can see. After constructing this flowchart and creating my list, I think I came to a better understanding of what's happening in the story. And a lot of this understanding was related to when I revisited the Prince of Death pustule talisman item description. A fetid pustule taken from facial flesh raises vitality. It is said that this pustule came from the visage of the Prince of Death, he who used to be called Godwyn. As first dead of the demigods, it's said he's buried deep under the capital, at the Erd Tree's roots. So the Elden Ring was shattered, after which it is said that Queen Marika was nowhere to be found, suggesting a causal relationship between those two events. And indeed, when speaking to Enya and the Two Fingers, we learn that Queen Marika is not only trapped within the Erd Tree, but also that she is, or was, the vessel for the Elden Ring. This could mean that Queen Marika is essentially Manus from Dark Souls 1. After Manus was killed, his soul was split into various shards, which became the daughters of Manus we fought in Dark Souls 2, that is, Nashandra, Nadalia, Alana, and Alsana. I think something analogous might have happened here, which is to say that Queen Marika was killed, or perhaps merely separated from the Elden Ring. This either spawned the demigods or transformed them from mere humans into demigods. This could be what is meant when they said they claimed the shards of the Elden Ring, leading to the shattering and the abandonment by the Greater Will. I think it's more likely that the demigods were once humans and that they plotted the Night of the Black Knives to claim the shards of the Elden Ring along with the associated powers. At minimum, we know that Ranni the Witch played a part in this plot, and that she appears to have some pretty significant powers. So, in returning to the Prince of Death pustule item description, perhaps a prerequisite to acquiring these powers was to spread death throughout the world, through the roots of the Erd Tree, thereby leading to abandonment by the Greater Will, which we might think of as radio waves that travel through space and time, but which is disrupted by corruption and death. So, during the Night of the Black Knives, Ranni's crew killed Godwyn the Golden with a black knife, turning him into something like Gravelord Nito. Then, they returned him to Roots, burying him deep beneath the Erd Tree, where his body would infect the roots of the Erd Tree, spreading death throughout the lands between. Finally, in an attempt to put a stop to this, Godfrey becomes the first Elden Lord and sacrifices himself by returning to Roots, thereby becoming Queen Marika's so-called husband. This increases the gold content in the roots, for lack of a better way of putting it, temporarily halting the spread of death through the roots. Just as in Dark Souls, however, this proves to be a temporary measure at best, leading to an ever-escalating series of sacrifices that are subject to diminishing returns. After Godfrey, Radagon was next, becoming second Elden Lord, as depicted by the statue found in the lecture hall. In Dark Souls, however, the player character was to be the second to sacrifice themselves to preserve the Age of Fire. But in this game, the player character is actually the third would-be martyr or Elden Lord to sacrifice themselves in order to halt the spread of Deathroot. That the two fingers are actively recruiting Tarnished as champions and would-be Elden Lords is an indication of how desperate they've become in their futile quest to resist the inevitable: death. So all of that is massively speculative, of course, and based on very little information, so I'm almost certainly wrong, but that's my first real attempt at piecing together what's happening in the world. If nothing else, I hope you found that interesting. Finally, and having said all of that, in capturing footage for this segment, I noticed something really interesting. That is, I went beneath Stormville Castle to capture footage of the Prince of Death visage. So when I'm capturing footage for segments like this one, I usually go offline so that player ghosts and bloodstains and messages don't get in the way, because sometimes dialogue boxes can pop up even with the HUD off, and that sort of shatters the illusion of the time lapse. So when capturing footage of the Prince of Death visage, I thought, that's weird, there's a bloodstain there. And then, before even investigating it, I knew immediately what it was. It was Sorcerer Rogier being transformed into what he is now. That is, someone who lives in death. Indeed, when we first met Rogier, he was able to see the guidance of grace. For this reason, we were able to summon him for Margit the Fell Omen. Then, we met him in a Stormville chapel, where he was a bit wishy-washy about what he was doing there. So, at some point between that encounter and when we see him at the Roundtable Hold with a blanket over his lower half, he ventured beneath Stormville Castle, where he may have encountered the ulcerated tree spirit that we later defeated. Or he may have encountered something else. Whatever it was, it seems to have infected him, in the same way that the Erd Tree roots came to be infected. He became corrupted by death, and because of that, he can no longer see the guidance of grace. So, in a sense, Sorcerer Rogier's story arc is essentially a microcosm of the larger cosmological story. Oh. Sorry, Regret. Yeah. We definitely had a lot to cover in that segment, so thank you for your patience, friend. Okay, having said all of that, I don't know what triggered this. I don't know if it was us activating the bloodstain, thereby sort of realizing what happened to him, or if there was some other trigger that I unwittingly activated, or if it was just a matter of time. Because the last couple times we came here and we spoke with Sorcerer Rogier, he was unresponsive, sleeping, but yeah, was not doing well. And obviously previously mentioned to us, he previously mentioned to us that he was going to apologize in advance for anything that might happen as a result of whatever transformation he was going through. So yeah, let's see what this item is. Oh, okay, we have a whole lot. Rogier's bell-bearing Spellblade's pointed hat, traveling attire, gloves, and trousers. Glintstone Sorcerer Rogier's pointed hat, a sign of a heretical practitioner, strengthens Glintstone sorcery skills. Rogier spent his entire life behaving with utter detachment. No one noticed the anger, grief, regret, or fear that existed along with it. Okay, that's really interesting. So in other words, behaving with utter detachment. So it wasn't that he was so much behaving with utter detachment as he was projecting an image of someone who was utterly detached, because otherwise he would not have experienced anger, grief, regret. Pun not intended by the game, undoubtedly, but or fear. Yeah, none of those emotions would have existed if he was, in fact, utterly detached. So he was feigning detachment or projecting detachment. Glintstone Sorcerer Rogier's traveling attire, graced with an intricate aristocratic decoration, strengthens Glintstone's sorcery skills, and the rest of the description is the same. Likewise with the decoration on the gloves and the fancy pointed tips of the shoes. So, okay, that's interesting. Rogier's bell-bearing. Rogier the Sorcerer's bell-bearing, found upon his perished flesh, offered to the Twin Maiden husks at the Roundtable Hold to gain access to new items. So I'm not sure if we're meant to actually take anything specific from the illustration of the bell-bearing, but it looks almost like there's an inscription on it, or a rune on, like inscribed in the actual bell-bearing. I could be wrong about that. By the way, if you hear me, if my voice sounds different, it's because it's actually 11 days after I recorded the first segment, and my wife and daughter are sleeping in the next room. So, so I guess we're in ASMR mode. I have the mic very close to my face, and I'm speaking perhaps a little bit more quietly than I usually do. So I don't know how different it will sound in post, but if I sound different, that's why. So my apologies. But yeah, very difficult to find time to record these days because Aurelia of Astora just does not sleep for long stretches of time. So it makes it very challenging. Okay, so we have to go speak to the husk, but first, let's see what else we have here. Rogier's letter. Letter written in a trembling hand. I forgot to tell you, but it seems Dee has a younger brother. I heard he lies in a deep sleep in the aqueduct beside the eternal city of Nokron, and it said he stood before the Prince of Death, not far beyond that spot. Very interesting. Okay, so the city of Nokron, if I recall correctly, and I could be wrong because it's been several months, that is the area that we're supposed to travel to along with Blythe the Half-Wolf. And yeah, so we're supposed to reach that area via the Siofra River well. Okay, I'm hesitating now because someone provided guidance as to how to pronounce Siofra. I think it's Shifra or something. Gosh darn it, I really should have written that down. I do have a fair number of notes here, as you all know, but yeah, in this moment, I'm not remembering where I wrote that down, if I did in fact write it down. So, Dee has a younger brother. Let's see if Dee has anything to say about this revelation or the death of Sorcerer Rogier.
Ah, hello there. What can I do for you?
Nothing. Okay, perhaps one more thing we should do before we move on. I think you all know what's coming. Oh, okay, no, that doesn't work. That does not work at all. Not only is it clipping through Not only is our greatsword clipping through Regret's hat, but it covers up way too much of his face. Okay, that one's good too, but oh, there's too many options. They're all okay, no, yeah, we're gonna stick with the horns, I think. Okay, we need to go speak with the husk and bring the bell bearing, but first... Oh, wait. Wait. Oh, excuse me. It's the finger speaking now. You will go to the sweet shop. Get me some gulab jams and some kaju cutli. The finger's over and out. Okay, it's, yeah, as I've mentioned previously, it wasn't funny the first few times, and yet I keep doing it. And it keeps, yeah. I don't know if it not being funny makes it funny, but for some reason I'm reacting as though that were the case. Anyways, let's offer a bell bearing. Bell bearing shop 1. Okay, so these are the things that they would have regardless, I'm guessing. I'm guessing that's the distinction here. Because I thought we had offered a bell bearing already, or maybe not. Maybe not. Okay, interesting. Glintstone Pebble, Ash of War. This Ash of War grants an armament the magic affinity and the following skill. Glintstone Pebble, skill that employs the glintstone sorcery of the same name. Follow up with a strong attack to chain the skill into a lunging thrust, performed while the armament is still imbued with glintstone. Okay, interesting. So these are all Ashes of War. Carian Greatsword, Carian Royal Prestige embodied in a skill. Transform blade into a magical greatsword and swing it down. Can be charged to increase its power. Usable on swords, colossal weapons accepted. So I presume that means it would not apply to the greatsword. Spinning weapon, defensive skill employed by Carian princesses. Lifts armament into mid-air and then makes it spin violently. Those it touches will suffer successive attacks. I want to say that Renala used this attack on us, but I could be remembering that incorrectly. Okay, thank you, Husk friends. Do take care. Okay, we're not gonna bug Dung Eater friend. But yeah, I'm still obviously a bit uncertain, unclear about what his deal is, other than, yeah, being just dreadful company and rather rude and antisocial, which I suppose is fair enough. Not, you know, I have certainly talked about this in the past on the channel, but I'm definitely an introvert, and there are a few things more annoying as an introvert when, you know, someone who is perhaps a bit more extroverted sort of pathologizes the fact that you are an introvert or more introverted than they are. And so, yeah, I should I should perhaps be a bit more charitable to Dung Eater friend. Gosh darn it. Yeah, I do have a list of names written down, including that friend. But I'm currently... On my phone, I have the list of items that we need to actually take care of before we proceed with the episode, so I can't also have the list of names pulled up at this moment in time, so my apologies. So the next thing on that list that I'm currently looking at is that we need to use the buff that Fia gave us, if I can remember what it was. And then we need to, yeah, see, because, okay, so actually first things first, let's disable the auto hide HUD so that we can see our health bar. And you can see in the upper left under the stamina bar the debuff on the right, so the farthest box, buff or debuff boxes, I guess, those icons at the top, you can see that we have one that our health is being decreased by something. And so, gosh darn it, what was the item? I think it was this, the Baldachin's Blessing. The favor allows one to forget any aches and pains. In death, there is only peace, for in death, there can be no sensation. So after we got this, I got obviously distracted by, and you can see the item illustration is actually pretty interesting in that it's sort of like a coat of arms. And in the middle, it has what looks like a tombstone, but there's a rift in the middle. Yeah, very interesting. I'm sure there's a lot there that I'm not getting, but anyways. So we're going to use this because, yeah. Okay, interesting. So we have poise now. Obviously it's temporary, but we do still have the HP debuff. So maybe we should speak with her. Yeah, that does not last. Ooh, okay. Yeah, you know, that's not a huge, it's not a huge thing. And you can see it's regenerating because we actually equipped the Blessed Dew Talisman. So, you know, it's not like we were missing a huge amount of HP, but let's see if she has any new dialogue.
I am pleased to see you again. Would you like me to hold you once more?
Yeah, I'm tempted to just continually do this because, you know, I imagine she probably has a quest tied to this and that every time you use it, like, yeah, I don't know. Every time you use it and then you come back, maybe if you do that 3 or 4 times and something happens, but, you know, we also have very limited time today. I don't know how long Aurelia of Astora is going to nap today, so... and yeah, again, this is the first time I'm recording actual gameplay. The previous segment was, you know, this is the first 40 odd minutes of the episode was not, I was not actually recording gameplay while recording that commentary, so it's the first time I've actually had time to record gameplay. I don't know if I want to spend it groping around in the dark, as I put it in that previous segment, trying to figure out her quest line. But yeah, sorry friend. Yeah, I'm don't feel, I don't give you my consent.
Then good day to you, my dear.
And good day to you as well. Thank you for not pressuring me into anything. Do we want to see if anyone else has any dialogue or no? Okay, forget it. We can do that in a later episode. For now, I'm just going to stick to my list here. I think we want to proceed in Caelid. So I think this episode is going to be Caelid 2. And there's a couple of reasons for that. So the first is that I'm seeing, you know, the Altus Plateau. I'm thinking about it more and more as sort of an Anne Orlando equivalent. I don't know if that is really an accurate way of looking at it, but, you know, the way we reached the Altus Plateau was through the ruin-strewn precipice. So we didn't actually take the Grand Lift of Dectus up because we don't have the medallions that we require in order to activate the Grand Lift. And so I'm essentially thinking about Caelid as, to put it in terms of Dark Souls 1. And I know this is obviously a very different game, but just in terms of like wrapping my own mind around the you know, where we ought to go from here. I'm thinking about Caelid as being sort of like the depths in Dark Souls 1. In Dark Souls 1, if you have the Master Key, you can need to re-enable auto hide HUD. So in Dark Souls 1, if you have the Master Key, you can, oh, and gosh darn it, I suppose I should mention, I don't know if I mentioned this in the previous segment, one of the comments I did read mentioned the debuff from Fia the Deathbed Companion, and so that's not something I realized on my own, but someone actually pointed that out. My apologies if you were the person who pointed it out, because I don't remember at the moment who it was, so whoever it was, yeah, thank you. So in Dark Souls 1, you can get the Master Key and skip the depths en route to Blight Town. When you go to Blight Town, and then you can fight Quelaag, who in an earlier episode, I think I called her Quailon or something. You can fight Quelaag, ring the Bell of Awakening without ever having to go through the depths. You can just skip basically right to the bottom of any... In fact, you can also skip Upper Blight Town. All of this is to say, I'm seeing this area as being somewhat optional. However, because we're obviously trying to do everything in the game, which, the more comments I read on the episodes that are being released, the more I see that that's not really something people do. But, we might as well at this point, because again, as I've mentioned previously, I don't know how much YouTube stuff I'm going to be able to do past a certain point. So, if this is going to be my last series and I'm not going to be able to finish Dark Souls 3 Let's Talk Lore, then, might as well make it a good one. But yeah, all of this to say, we're going to do Caelid, and then we're going to try to activate the Grand Lift of Dectus, because, there's no reason not to, really, at this point. We could just proceed, but we have this whole area, and I want to say this is Redmane Castle, and I want to say that's where our friend Alexander the Great is for the tournament. So I said there were a couple of reasons why we were going to go do Caelid now, and that is probably the foremost reason, because I want to see Jarfriend, I want to see what he's up to, I want to check out this tournament, and hopefully we can team up and, yeah, make a tremendous team. Regret and Alexander the Great. So having said all of that, we do still have some remaining loose ends that I would like to tie up before proceeding. One of them is that this thing is new here, and I think, that was my assumption, because the game was recently updated to include a PvP arena, which is something that, I was confused when we went to that arena earlier in the game and we just couldn't get in, and I assumed that it was something like maybe we needed to beat the game and come back to it and see what would happen then. But it was apparently something that was unfinished and they just decided they would add it into the game later, which is interesting. But so we could, in theory, enter it from here, but we're not going to do that. We're going to try to enter from the actual Colosseum. However, first, we have a couple of other items on our list before we go into that. And the first one is we have to go to the Volcano Manor. And the reason for that, I came here looking to get a screenshot for a thumbnail. No, maybe it wasn't in this room. I was walking around trying to find an interesting screenshot for a thumbnail, and then I saw this person. So you got a fancy cape there, friend. So is this the Shard Bearer? Oh gosh darn. Okay, I'm gonna pull up my list of names on my phone here. Is this Praetor Rykard, Lord of the Volcano Manor of Mount Gelmir? I suppose we'll find out. Hi, friend.
Brave Tarnished, what is your business here? I'm afraid this is not a guest room. What's that peculiar look upon your face?
It's Raya?
Am I still a serpent? Oh, how dreadful. How dreadful indeed. Oh, forgive my distress. I ought to be thanking you for treating me as usual. Despite this appearance, Brave Tarnished, this is my true form. My real name is Zarias. Please forgive the deception. Do understand. This duplicity is my own doing. Lady Tanith speaks no falsehoods. And the Volcano Manor is just as it seems.
Yeah, it sounds legit. Okay, so yeah, it's the same cloak and everything, and now it actually makes sense as to why she was, I asked in all seriousness, like, hey, do you have some sort of like spinal condition when we first met her, because she was sort of slouched over in a weird way. Oh, that's I love how she didn't realize she was in her other form. Oh, of course, friend. Yeah, it's, I'm obviously inherently skeptical now that you've mentioned don't. Everything here is exactly as it seems. This is just an isolated incident of deception. Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Lady Tanith is my mother. I am told I was born by the grace of a glorious king, that my mother cherishes this form I inhabit. I am proud of what I am, but people are cruel. If they saw my true form, they wouldn't speak to me. And so I assume a guise when seeking new recruits. But you are not like the rest.
Oh. Oh, well, yeah, I would, as long as you're not aggressive, we're good. We're friends. So in other words, I'm thinking about, I've been working on a family tree of, some of the more important people in the world, or at least according to the story as I understand it thus far. And so, Praetor Rykard would be her father then, and Lady Kenneth her mother. Which is why seemingly she is a reptile. Just, I don't know, when did I hear that Praetor Rykard was? Yeah, I can't recall all the details right now, but that's my assumption for the moment.
My serpentine form and the name Zarias were secrets, known only to Lady Tanith and I. Now I share the secrets with you as well. Please keep them safe from anyone else.
I wonder what triggered this. I already had it on my list to go speak to the friend at the Boilprawn Shack. Now I'm even more... In my notes it just says, speak to lobster friend. Yeah, I can't remember his name, but now I want to go speak to him even more.
My serpent was
okay.
Secret. Now I share the secrets.
Well, thank you for sharing your secrets, friend. And yeah, don't worry about your physical appearance. You're, still the same person, clearly, despite the different appearance and name. And yeah, I am, I was inherently skeptical of this place to begin with because, like, it couldn't look more cartoonishly evil if they tried. But yeah, that just adds to it. Let's see if Lady Tanith has anything to say about this.
Now you are a recusant true, and a full-fledged member of the Volcano Manor. I am pleased to have you on our side.
Okay, so we can ask about it.
Did you see her? The girl, Raya, with her true face? Well, if she confided in you the name Zarias, then perhaps it is not my place to speak. But as her adoptive mother, I ask of you, please, be kind to her.
Oh.
Look after young Zarias. Her true visage belies the purity of her heart. Honestly, I hardly deserve the sweet child.
Oh man, okay. Maybe I judged them too harshly. So in other words, she's not her biological mother. So she may yet be Praetor Rykard's daughter, but she is her adoptive mother. Okay then. Something else that I noticed while editing and looking back at the old episodes, and obviously I came to this conclusion to some degree when we first came here, because I was like, wait, didn't we meet at Night Bernal? Wasn't there a guy? And yes, he is clearly the same person. So what's not clear to me is whether he became corrupted from the first time we met him to the present, or if this was his true form and he was also under a guise as a means of potentially recruiting people. And so that, I think, is interesting because when we met him, he asked us a question, which I think, had we answered differently, we might have been invited to the Volcano Manor sooner. Don't really have much to back that up other than, it's just my suspicion. But yeah, I find it pretty interesting because you could tell the way he asked the question, it was basically a question to test if we were cynical, recusant material, I guess. And when we answered it, us being us in our sort of hopeful and, everyone's great kind of way, he was just like, oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. And then sold us some stuff and went on his way. And obviously now when you go back there, he's not there because he's here. Looking quite fancy with his armor as well. But These are like lions attacking one another, dragons, I'm not sure. Wolves, could be several different things.
You're still alive, I see.
Yeah, okay.
Well.
Until we meet again, indeed, friend. Okay, so maybe let's head over to the Boilprawn Shack. If I can remember where the heck it is. Right here. Blackguard, that's his name. Yeah, I think at a certain point what I might want to do is maybe off camera or something, just go speak to all the various NPCs. Or, yeah, I need to figure out how best to do this because, you know, there would potentially be a lot of wasted time in an episode if I were to say, okay, let's go speak with all the NPCs and then sort of doing commentary along the way as I go. So maybe what I'll do is, you know, at some episode, you know, maybe the next episode or the episode after that, I will start the episode by just saying, okay, we're going to do an NPC roundup, and then just not say anything until we come across an NPC who actually has something new to say. And then that way I can just cut straight to the new dialogue and then talk about it. And then, you know, another cut to the next NPC and the dialogue and, you know, what I have to say about it, and just go on from there. So I don't know. A little bit inside baseball, not really necessary for you all to know that, but yeah, I'm telling you anyway, so. Hi, friend.
All right, mate. Want some more prawn, do you?
No, I don't. I don't want your prawn. I did want to chat with you, but clearly, so this is exactly my point. So I warp somewhere, I chat about it. Oh yeah, we're going to go here and talk to this person. And then they don't have anything to say. So then this segment ends up just being me warping here, being like, let's see if they have something to say. And then they don't. And then we go to the next area. So had I just decided to warp here and not say anything, talk to him first, then, you know, I could have cut the whole segment and you wouldn't even know it ever existed. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe in the next episode or the episode after that, I will do that. I was thinking that maybe we might be able to say something to him about Volcano Manor or something like that. But yeah, because there are a number of NPCs that we really still need to follow up with. Another one is White Mask of Array. I still have not. I've done a couple of invasions off camera. I've still not actually successfully killed anyone during an invasion. So, you know, I don't know if that's something that we'd be able to do. Because, yeah, I'm terrible at PvP in this game, at least in the few invasions I have done. But, yeah, of course, we are going to go to the Colosseum and see if, you know, we can demonstrate otherwise. But I don't know that I have what it takes. I'm just looking at my list here. So the next thing on my list is that we still have 2 ghost paintings to find. Again, maybe that's something that I'll do off camera, or, you know, I'll edit together the segment in a way where I won't say anything until I actually find something, and then I'll comment on it. Not going to waste my time today looking for the ghost paintings because, yeah, it's dreadful. Stormhill Lightning. There's still that spot in Stormhill where there's lightning that is just randomly striking, and I've avoided it repeatedly. And so I was just wondering, like, what if I went there and just allowed the lightning to hit me? But again, probably not going to do that today. And then, okay, so this is not on my list, but another thing I've been thinking about is the Bloodborne friends, the Children of the Forest friends, or what the heck were they called? The vulgar friends, the tiny friends with the things they throw that they don't cause any visible buildup, but there's some sort of mist that they cause when they throw these things. And I was like, maybe I should just let them throw that at me and see what happens. That maybe would be something akin to what happens in Bloodborne when you're killed by the bag-carrying men, whose names I've since forgotten. The large, very scary and formidable friends who take you to the Hypogean jail. So yeah, maybe that's something we'll do. Because yeah, I've been thinking about a lot of the comments, people being really annoyed that I was avoiding the chest traps in the earlier part of the game. And the reason for that, as I may or may not have mentioned earlier, is that Dark Souls 2 very specifically conditioned me to avoid those traps. So of course I'm going to roll away from it and not just stand there when it's very clear there's a trap. But anyways, file that one under unexpected controversies of things that I said and did during that playthrough. But yeah, let's go to Stormhill. We do want to go to the Colosseum. If I could remember where the lightning strikes, I want to say it's here. So we'll warp to Warmaster's Shack. We'll take Torrent down here, see if I can find where the lightning... Nah, okay, forget it. No, I'm not going to waste my time with that. Let's, yeah, we're just going to go straight to the Colosseum. And then after that, I've since realized by virtue of just exploring in the open world area while, you know, it was the middle of the morning, didn't really, you know, I had like maybe 10-15 minutes to just fart around and loaded up Elden Ring. It was just riding around on Torrent, just looking at things. And then I realized, oh, who is this? Have we seen this friend before? Whoops. Don't know that we have. But yeah, and then I realized, wait a second. Yeah, we missed an entire, I was going to say cave. We missed the Murkwater Catacombs. I have a clip that I saved for that, so that I can show you all before we actually went there. So I'm sort of giving it away already, but yeah, we'll see if we can load up the clip before we actually go there. Okay, so where are we actually supposed to enter here? Because my assumption was that we would just sort of walk over here and the door would now be open. So maybe we do have to enter from... Oh, no. I was thinking for a second, maybe we do have to enter from the Roundtable Hold. I read the patch notes, and in the patch notes it mentioned, I think, that there was a Colosseum here, and then also maybe one in Caelid. I could be remembering that wrong, though. Of course, previously this door did not open. Limgrave Colosseum, and there, of course, is Queen Marika to greet us. It's very quiet in here. Why are there bloodstains here? Oh, like... So... Are these bloodstains from when people died during combat? Did they... Yeah, I'm a bit confused by that, but that's okay. Yeah, this is not as expansive as I was expecting. Okay. Might as well give it a shot, although, yeah, obviously this is not an exceptionally optimal build. But I'm really not any position to really know what is and is not optimal, so I guess we'll just, do our best and see what happens. Okay, combat format. So combat ordeal, so I think that means like free-for-all and united combat. Let's try combat ordeal. So you can do, I guess, we'll say any number of combatants. So we'll just see where we end up. Spirit ashes prohibited. Oh, so that's interesting. So you can you change this? All 4 or 6 players are enemies and have a limited time, 300 seconds to compete for the highest number of downed enemies. Usage of the flasks of crimson and cerulean tears is permitted, but limited in number. The use of spirit ashes is prohibited, so I guess you can't actually change that. Unless... Is it contingent upon the game mode? I guess not. Well, that's interesting. And, excuse me, so you can use Colosseum passwords so that you can do fight clubs and whatnot, so that's pretty cool. Restrictions... so it allows you to basically create like a custom. So let's see, if we just do that, does it need to be longer? Set custom rules for the can be accessed once the Colosseum password is set. Okay, well I set the password, friends. Okay, yeah. Don't know what that's about, but okay, and the venue presumably will change based on where you actually enter combat. Although I wonder if you entered from the Roundtable Hold, would you be able to select any of them? My assumption is that it would just probably, for us, it would just show Limgrave Colosseum. But then once we've unlocked the Caelid Colosseum, it might show that. So yeah, not sure, but we'll see. Well, let's give it a shot. Okay, the 6 or any number of combatants thing was taking quite a while, so let's try with just 2.
Hey.
We're gonna get stomped here, I think. Oh! Ouch. That one hurts. Oh. Gosh, I really can't dodge. Oh, parry spam. Oh, dreadful. Oh, GG, friends. Well done. Oh, I thought we were done. Uh-oh, this is bad. Oh. Oh. Okay, that was pretty cool. Gravity pull. Oh, gosh darn it. I thought I was one-handing, or gosh darn it, I thought it was one-handing my weapon there. Oh, come on. This person is wiping the floor with me. Terrible. Just dreadful. Oh, come on. I guess you can't block or parry jumping attacks. That's okay. if this build is supposed to be a reference to Lawrence from Bloodborne. No, again, Aegon. Gosh darn it, I gotta stop trying to block that. Ouch. Wow. Again, wiping the floor with me. Yeah, you know, maybe I just don't have it anymore. I don't know if I ever had it, but certainly when I was in Dark Souls, I feel like I was at least half decent in PvP. Dark Souls 2 is probably my best game as far as PvP is concerned. Literally the only moves that I've been able to hit this person with are the, gosh darn it, crouching and rolling R1s, which are like, which were partially nerfed. Come on, yes, we did it. Oh, and then I just wasted a flask, not realizing that it was going to replenish anyway. Whew, okay, that feels good. This friend definitely deserves the win. I'm just glad that I got one elimination and that it wasn't a complete obliteration, although it was an obliteration, just GG friend. Well done, Lawrence. Okay, so that went more or less as I expected it to go, which was dreadfully. So, yeah, it is what it is. Pretty cool stuff. Nice of them to have added that, but yeah, let's move on. So, the cave, or the catacombs that we missed last time was the Murkwater Catacombs, so let's head there now. Okay, so I made the very, very silly mistake. I don't know if this is what actually caused the issue, but yesterday when I stopped recording, I didn't close OBS, I just put my computer into rest mode. And then today, when I started the recording, I didn't restart OBS or anything like that. So at some point while recording my path through the Murkwater Catacombs, which, you know, wasn't very long, so I lost maybe, I don't know, 15 minutes of footage. Yeah, the encoding got overloaded, and basically I just lost the recording. So you'll have to accept my sincerest apologies for that. We fought some boss who was somewhat interesting, and we got the ashes for Banished Knight Engvil, who is one of two knights dubbed the Wings of the Storm, and despite his banishment he rejected the invitation of the grace-given Lord, instead keeping watch over a masterless castle for many years, gaining renown as a hero of the fringes. So I found that kind of interesting in the sense that, you know, it has me thinking about this idea of a grace-given Lord, which has had me thinking in turn about the distinction, if there is any, between the guidance of grace, or sorry, the grace behind the guidance, on the one hand, and on the other hand, the idea of the greater will. So are those the same force? Are they opposing forces? Yeah, I'm not really sure. But, you know, I have been thinking about those two things in relation to one another and whether or not they actually, are related or different, and, you know, how they relate to one another if they are, in fact, different entities. So, yeah, I'm obviously not going to do the area again because I just did it and I don't know what could be gained from it. But another thing perhaps worth noting, and I don't know if this is the same as in the other catacombs, but it looks like the flowers outside of the catacombs are all grave violet flowers, which, you know, makes sense. It's a nice little touch, though. Okay, I guess we don't really have anything else to do here except go to Caelid. I've been putting it off for so long. Another thing I did want to do at some point is return to the four belfries and deal with the crumbling Farum Azula area, but yeah, we're not going to do that today. Warmaster's Shack, we've already done that. That was so that we could go to the Colosseum. So we'll put this under Caelid. And yeah, let's head to the Wrought View balcony. So now I'm quite paranoid about my recording messing up again. But, you know, it doesn't look like I've dropped any frames yet. And I really do think that was probably just as a result of me being silly and not restarting OBS after putting my computer into rest mode. Oh, I'm scared, friends. I'm very scared. Quite spooked. Last time we were here, obviously, we ended up tucking tail and running, which, you know, I think was absolutely the right call. It was 100% the right decision to make. Still, there are zombie friends. Still, I'm scared. Even though, obviously, we've leveled up considerably since we were last here. We also... Our weapon is a great deal stronger than it was previously. And yeah, we've had a bit more experience in the game world. And sort of we're a bit more secure in the knowledge that we don't need to kill everything. So we can just sort of loot the area and move on. Like, obviously I don't want to miss anything, but at the same time, I'm not so concerned anymore about missing things. I'm not as concerned as I was anyway. Ouch. These birds with teeth are dreadful. Get wrecked though, thanks to my Lucaria friends. Yeah, get them, friends. Normally I, when they go crazy like that, I'm just like, guys, just relax, it's okay. But now I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Get them. Sick them. Okay, there's another bird up there. Looking back at the, yesterday, I think episode 16 was released, where we went to the village of the Albinarics. So to give you a sense of where we are in this playthrough relative to where, you know, what has been released as of yet, that's where we were, or where we are, I should say. Okay, where did the bird with teeth go? Don't worry, friends, I'm scared too. But if we stick together, we should be fine. Okay, is it on the other side of the ruins here? Oh, there it is. Hello. Wow. Oh, okay. Okay. Did the bird just trick me? What? I'm very confused. I'm very confused. Because that sounded to me... It sounded to me like the bird was ready to be reposted, that was an opportunity to repost the bird, but instead it just sort of lifted me up and dropped me. So yeah, frightening and not at all pleasant, which, you know, more or less describes this area in general, so I should not be surprised. Smithing Stone level 4, very, very nice. I think we need 6 of those. Oh, no, never mind. Okay. No, we're waiting for Smithing Stone. Yeah, we have a whole ton of those. We need Smithing Stone level 5. Sorry, as I mentioned previously, it's been quite some time since I recorded the previous episode, so it's going to take me some time to get back up to speed with things. Aurelia of Astora is once again sleeping in the next room, so if my voice sounds different, that's why. But, yeah, we're hoping now that she's going to turn 3 months old tomorrow. We're hoping that she's going to get to the point where she actually starts sleeping a little bit longer, longer stretches, so that, you know, we can have some time to ourselves. And of course, you know, in rewatching the... Okay, we can't go too far here, otherwise our friends will get sent home, so we should continue just, I guess, taking all these friends out. And I only say that after saying that we don't need to kill everything, simply because I don't know how successful we'll be in getting by these friends without... yeah, having to engage with them. Oh, I'm scared. Oh, ran out of stamina. Oh my goodness. Okay, one more hit, friends. One more hit. Thank you. Okay, well done, friends. You guys are honestly tremendous teammates. Very grateful to have you on my side. But yeah, long story short, it would be nice to have a bit more time to ourselves. And, you know, I was rewatching that first segment and, you know, it occurred to me I sound miserable when I'm talking about all the things I've been doing for Aurelia of Astora. But, you know, I didn't, obviously, I'm not miserable. I'm very, very happy. I'm extremely grateful and lucky to have such a wonderful family, small though it may be. But yeah, it is definitely an adjustment. And so, I don't know why I sounded so downtrodden when talking about what it's like to sort of have a newborn baby and having to... Whoa, okay, this one has red eyes. I don't know if we've seen that yet. We've definitely seen this particular doggo at Fort Gael in particular. Oh, and the other places we've been in Caelid, but I don't know if I've ever seen one with red eyes. Thankfully, it didn't seem to make much of a difference, but it is what it is. Okay, wow, okay. Went from dropping in that previous segment 50% of all frames to, in this segment, in this recording, I should say, not even a single frame. So perhaps I shouldn't say anything for risk of jinxing it again, even though I don't believe in jinxes, but anyways. All appears to be good. I think the big issue is just the fact that I, you know, took the computer out of rest mode and did not reset OBS. So stone sword key lost with use, of course. I didn't want to go down here initially because I was afraid it would send our friends home. Sword of St. Trina. Silver sword carried by clerics of St. Trina inflicts sleep ailment upon foes. St. Trina is an enigmatic figure. Some say she is a comely young girl. Others are sure he is a boy. The only certainty is that their appearance was as sudden as their disappearance. That's very interesting. So they went from referring to St. Trina as a she, as a he, and then as a they. So, yeah, wow, very interesting. Unique skill, Mists of Slumber, releases a faint purple mist that spreads across a wide frontwards area. This mist inflicts the sleep ailment upon foes. That would be a very interesting sword to use. Because, you know, thinking about the whole idea of sleep ailment, like, the sword would have to be pretty weak, I would imagine, for that to be really of much use at all. Yeah, so that's intriguing. Because, you know, otherwise wouldn't it just end up depleting the person you're fighting of their HP before you even build up the sleep ailment? I'm not sure. But, yeah, that's the thing. So, you know, I'm not going to worry as much, I think, about, you know, as I did in... I'm not going to worry to the extent that I did in Liurnia of the Lakes of, you know, making sure I've combed every square centimeter of the map. I'm just going to sort of vaguely make sure I've done that. This tree here looked like a doggo for a second. I think I'm scarred. So, yeah, I'm going to do my best to not miss things, obviously. But I'm not really... I'm going to try anyway to not be too bothered about it if I do miss things. Where is this? Where is this scarab? I can hear this scarab. And there's a shiny that I miss over there. Gosh darn it. Okay. Let's get the shiny first. Oh, Golden Rune level 5. What did that drop from? Huh. Okay. So yeah, I say I'm going to try and do this because, you know, I honestly don't know how successful I'll actually be, but... Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, crud. Okay. No, stop. Yeah, you know, there have been a number of comments, people expressing dismay that I'm not, you know, I've not tried using Torrent for combat. And, you know, I don't understand why he gets off Torrent so much. And, you know, he should be using Torrent more. But, like, my problem from the outset has been the same. And I thought I verbalized this, but maybe I didn't really verbalize it as much as or as well as I could have, which is I find the controls very, very slippery to the point where, yeah, it's just, I find it extremely, you know, someone said, oh yeah, it's fun, but, you know, I don't find it fun when I have so little control over my character. Okay, so that was that a trick? Is that supposed to be, wow, like they're supposed to be playing dead or something, right? Like that's gotta be what that is. Yeah, anyways. So, maybe I'm just dreadful at the game. Okay, that is the smithing stone we were looking for. I think we need one more in order to get our weapon to the next level, which would be plus 15. So that would be quite nice if we could do that. Okay, so where's Fort Gael relative to us? So Fort Gael is going to be just to the right over here. Ah, right, okay. So, we have an archer friend here somewhere. Oh, of course, we can't see him until we get a bit closer, maybe, because there are also friends in this encampment here, and here, and here. But you can only see these ones because we're not close enough yet. So that's really, yeah, interesting. And I say that because obviously I farmed this area a great deal of farming I did in this area. So I know which friends we perhaps ought to be focusing on, although, we're going to want to re-equip our Arrow's Reach Talisman so that we can mess with these friends from a distance and get them to mess with each other. Again, I know I said I wasn't gonna take on all of these friends, and that it was okay, you know, in my view, to just sort of leave them alone. However, that does not mean I'm not going to try and sick the friends on each other, given the opportunity. And gosh darn it, this is an opportunity, even though I'm failing miserably at aiming my arrows here. Friends, you're about to be in big trouble. You should activate. There you go. Oh, crud. Oh well. Sorry. Okay, this friend as well. Definitely, they activate the black doggos when they roar, although that time they didn't roar. So, I don't know exactly who's on whose side, but for the most part I find they do... Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, okay. I was not expecting that. Oh my god. Pardon me. Oh. Okay, I was not expecting the doggo to be able to jump up here. Nor this friend. Okay, we're in trouble. We're in deep trouble now. Okay, they are fighting each other. Whoa, what was that? Torrent friend, let's go. Oh my goodness. Oh wow, okay. We're alright, we're okay. Friends, look. There's a doggo chasing me. What should we do? Okay, they're not cooperating very well here. Oh. Fire tank friend knocked over the doggo. Oh no. Flame chariot, whatever they're called. Oh, stop. Okay, that's bad. Okay, there's really not much to be gained here. Although I suppose there are probably items around here that I could be looting that I've missed before. So, but in any case, when farming this area over and over and over again, one thing I noted is, of course, that there's this there is a castle here that I've not yet explored. And here is the great bow archer friend. Looks quite fancy. I was very tempted while farming the area to engage with that friend on numerous occasions. However, I resisted the temptation just knowing that they were likely to drop a great bow or something at some point. So I didn't want to do that off camera if they were going to drop some unique item that I would then be reading. So we've not reached the point in the playthrough of the released episodes yet where I actually opted to start farming, so I'm curious to hear the reaction. My suspicion is that many people will be upset by my decision to start farming, but, you know, it is what it is. Because lots of people have different ideas about what makes these games fun, why you should or shouldn't play these games, how you should play these games. And in my view, there was a discussion at one point in the comment section about that, where, you know, someone complained about me summoning spirits for the various different boss fights. And someone else in the comment section pointed out that, you know, it's a matter of personal preference, because, you know, something I have often enjoyed is, you know, for better or worse, and, you know, I enjoy intense boss fights too, where, you know, you have to be perfect with all your dodges and everything. You know, the Fume Knight from Dark Souls 2, for instance, is one of my favorite boss fights. Same with Knight Artorias, Dark Souls 1. So, you know, I enjoy those fights as well, the one-on-one sort of dual boss fights. But I also enjoy, excuse me, my voice cracked like an 14-year-old there for some reason. I also enjoy, for different reasons, stomping bosses. So, you know, getting your build to a point where you are just so much more powerful than a boss, then you just, you know, it's an enjoyment for different reasons, right? And everyone enjoys different things. So, yeah, I hope people understand when they get to that point in the playthrough where I started farming and trying to make my build a bit more powerful, that, you know, or I say understand, I hope at least they respect that everyone plays these games for different reasons, and, you know, that everyone is unique and has their own sort of perspective on what they enjoy and what they don't, and that, you know, it's something that you should respect, and not just, yeah, be upset about, or, you know, not further this notion that there exists some sort of universal conception of fun, or, you know, how you should or should not play a Souls game. And is that another, like, giant face? No. And I'm realizing, so, you know, some of you could argue that I'm contradicting myself after earlier in this episode, arguing that I'm playing online and that my decision to play online is justified because that's how FromSoft intends the game to be played. And, you know, personally, I don't think those are contradictory statements. Simply because I'm trying to remain mindful of where I am here. So that's the Caelem Ruins. Okay, this is the Smoldering Wall. So I do want to go here before we proceed. And, you know, the amazing thing is I was thinking, okay, we're going to need to rest at the Site of Grace at some point. But now I'm actually not thinking we need to do that. And the reason for that is in part because I actually understand the flask refill mechanic now. To my point from earlier, it's something I really ought to have figured out much, much earlier. But, it takes me a while to learn sometimes, even when it should not take as long as it does. But, just because I have a PhD does not mean I am immune to making mistakes and doing silly things sometimes. But yeah, so I don't think those are contradictory statements because, that is very much a binary thing in the sense that, you can play the game online, you can play the game offline. FromSoft has one default setting for the game, which is playing the game online. That's the default setting. But there's not necessarily any default setting for what you do when you're in the world, because the possibility space is so much larger and more expansive than a simple decision of whether or not to play online. Been waiting for months to kill this friend, and oh my god, he's not even gonna have any drops, is he? Nope. Of course. Oh, the number of times I was farming where I was like, maybe I should take him out, but no, but what if he has a drop? Well, I guess he may yet have random drops, but as we've just seen, he doesn't have any guaranteed drops, so it is what it is. But yeah, anyways, I'm talking in circles at this point. Long story short, I recognize that there are different ideas, that everyone is going to have different ideas about how you ought to be playing this game. And in my view, I don't see anything wrong with playing online. I think the game was at least in part designed to be played online. And so, I certainly don't think playing online disqualifies a playthrough as being a blind playthrough. I don't agree with that assessment at all. Oh, friends, you gotta crouch if you're gonna follow me here. They're not crouching. Oh no. Oh, how did I screw that up? Oh, thank goodness for iframes. Okay, so this would be, I guess, the first time you'd be seeing these flame friends. If you had not been to Caelem Ruins first, like I have. Fire Blossom, have we read that yet? Flame grant me strength. I'm hearing these footsteps, but those are our friends. Okay. Flame grant me strength and Fire Blossom. A half-ashen and smoldering flower that blooms on the mountaintops of the giants, material used for crafting items, fertilized by the sparks from the forge at the peak where burns the flame of ruin. So I believe we have read that. So based on the geography of the world, as it's been laid out thus far, I want to imagine, because, here there's water and that mountaintops to the north, that would have to be here. Unless, the world expands even more beyond this and that north is a bit farther. But yeah, I would not put that past the game at this point. Because, yeah, it's continually surprised and amazed me at how much larger it is than I originally anticipated. Flame grant me strength, superior incantation of the fire monks, creates an invigorating fire within that enhances physical and fire affinity attack power. This incantation does not burn the caster, and so it is considered forbidden by the guardians of the flame. Very interesting stuff. Okay, so this is a dead end, it seems. So let's head back around. This place really is a hellscape. And yeah, just despite how hellish and terrifying and dreadful this place is, it really is beautiful for all those same reasons. Make sure there's no items here. Nope. All good, okay. My assumption is that our friends probably won't be able to They're stuck. Good job, friends. My assumption is we probably will not be able to bring our friends inside, so let's make sure there's nothing around the corner here. Behold, Elden Ring. Oh. Alrighty then. Okay, so we cannot enter here yet, or can we? Oh, are we gonna have to... That's cool. Okay, so yeah, we're taking a side entrance in. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. What's happening? Oh no, someone's, Okay, well played, friend. I saw you there, but underestimated you. Okay, so that's where we just were. Are those our friends fighting? What is happening? Unless there's an existing battle already happening in here. Fort Gael. Oh, it's one of those lion friends. Okay, it looks like our friends are fighting the lion through the wall. So this is the same as the one... Well played, friend. Looks very similar to the one we found inside Stormville Castle. Okay, that's not going to work. They have anti-cheese mechanisms built in, which is fair enough. Where are our friends? Oh, okay. No, friend. You're in trouble now. Oh, gosh darn it. Okay, we gotta go help him now. Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay. Oh my gosh, I couldn't see him. Whew. We did it, friends. We did it. Okay. He's gone. Okay, good job. Ash of War, Lion's Claw. This Ash of War grants an armament to the heavy affinity and the following skill. Lion's Claw, skill of the Redmanes who fought alongside General Radahn. Somersault forward, striking foe with armament. Oh my goodness. Aurelia of Astora is crying. Now the neighbor upstairs is vacuuming. I apologize if the audio in this episode ends up being substandard. Rune Arc, very nice. So, can we not open... Why is it always blocking? I guess we can't open the gate. That was my assumption when I jumped down. Yeah, these Riot Lucaria soldier friends really are tremendous help in the open world areas. Very grateful to have them on our side. But now that we are not worried about their well-being, we can finish exploring this upper area here. Warming stone, very nice. Oh. Where did you come from, friend? Did he just teleport, or is he capable of jumping hundreds of meters in the air or something? Oh, this guy looks fancy. Well played with delaying your attack there, friend. My crew can't be beat, though. Oh. Aegon, have you learned nothing? Apparently not. Or apparently I have learned nothing, I should say. Okay. Still waiting for a mimic. Star Scourge Heirloom. A talisman engraved with the scene from a heroic tale raises strength. The mightiest hero of the demigods confronted the falling stars alone, and thus did he crush them, his conquest sealing the very fate of the stars. So that has me thinking we're going to see something akin to that which we saw in Bloodborne, which is to say that in Bloodborne it talked a lot about the blood moon, the moon this, the moon that, but ultimately the moon ended up being the moon presence. So it was a reference not to a celestial body, but to a monster that took the fall. Oh, of course there's a warp gate here. Okay, we have to make sure that we've addressed... Okay, yeah, just walk casually like nothing. You didn't just warp. You know, I know you're ghosts and everything, but my goodness, that scared the daylights out of me. Interesting that it has these like intermediate steps here, but it doesn't look like there's any reason for them to be there. So yeah, let's make sure that we have done everything here, as in speaking to this ghost friend, before we proceed through that warp gate. But it does look like we have... Have we done everything? Don't know that we've been there yet. Yeah, I don't think so. Okay, so we'll speak with Ghost Friend first and then go from there. Hi, friend. Oh, convene the festival of war. Honor General Radon with a warrior's glory. It's in your hands, Sir Jared. Festival of War. So I wonder if he's talking about the Redmane Castle tournament that Alexander the Great was telling us about. Jar friend. Yeah, not sure. Okay, let's try and make this leap here. Time for jumping indeed. That was my thought as well. Oh, okay. It's probably better that we don't have to jump over a railing. Mushroom ahead, so in other words, nothing of value. Thank you. Mushroom ahead, okay. Why is it always upgrade materials? Or not even... Okay, so here is the lever for opening the gate. Thank you. Now, why is it always crafting materials? And that's it, seemingly. No other reason for this little side path. I guess we did open the gate, so there's that, but... Okay, time to warp. Oh. Yeah, I miss things very easily, don't I? Qatar. Friend, that's not nice. We're guests here. Qatar, imported dagger design with a rather unique handle. The blade can be swung about as the extension of one's fist. Still no hidden path, indeed. Okay, interesting. Well, let's see where the warp thing takes us. I have to go back up here now, it looks like. Yeah, it's pretty funny when, you know, you spend all this time farming in an area, and then you end up in a situation where you can't record for a while, you can't play the game for a while, so, like, just so much time spent on, like, wonder what's in this castle. And, you know, I wasn't expecting anything really significant or mind-blowing to be here, but it's just funny, the little mysteries you have in your head when you just don't have time to play, and then You, when it's revealed, you're just kind of like, oh yeah, that's the thing. Even if it's not, you know, as mind-blowing as you might have hoped it would be. But, having said all of that, we've not gone through this warp gate yet, so let's see. Or sending gate, whatever it's called. So, I can't imagine it's going to send us forward. Because there's not really much there. So, let's see. Castle ahead. Don't tell me that's supposed to be a Redmane castle. That right there, I think, is the church where we started, the Smoldering Church. So yeah, I don't think it sends you straight ahead. Let's see. See you later, friends. Thanks for all your help. Okay, where are we? Oh! Okay. This has got to be Redmane Castle. Oh, gosh darn it, but we need a site of grace, don't we? Oh, crud. Because I'm scared to... Because there's another sending gate there. Don't want to use it. Because, you know, sending gates are, to the best of my knowledge, one-way gates. So the question is it more likely that there's a site of grace forward or back? If I had to guess, I would say back. But I really don't see anything. But then again, I'm not seeing anything here either. What is this? Okay, I thought that might have been a new upgrade material or something. Or upgrade material, crafting material. I'm tempted to just run around looking for a site of grace, because this is very spooky. The fact that there's no... Okay. I was going to say they have all these decorations set up for the tournament. It looks like it's just the weapons and shields of all the people who seemingly, or perhaps, have died here. Wow, this is eerie as heck. And I've made this point on a number of occasions with respect to some of the areas in this game that it's almost spookier, it's often spookier when there's just no one there at all. Because you're expecting, it raises the tension, you're expecting some hideous and frightening monster to just pop up out of nowhere and really scare the daylights out of you. And so the longer you don't see anything, the more tension there is, and it just builds and builds and builds. I can hear a scarab somewhere. Wow, this place is very interesting. It's looking perhaps like there's not much here. Smithing stone level 6. Darn it, we still need one level 5, okay. Oh no. Shows what I know. I thought that was going to kill us. Another item back here. Smithing stone level 3. Come on, FromSoft, meet me halfway. Give me one of the smithing stones I'm looking for. So yeah, it doesn't look like there's much here. So perhaps we should go over here and look for a site of grace. Try rolling. Not going to do that. Oh, okay. Yeah. My initial instinct was actually to go back here, and I didn't listen to my gut, and there you go. Wow, our first new site of grace. Impassable Greatbridge. So the sending gate's supposed to send you to the other end of the bridge then? Is that why it's impassable? No, it actually sent us inside the castle. Okay. Wow. Okay, that's really interesting. Okay, there's a site of grace over there I can see. Can't call Torrent near, so this is officially what I believe has been described in the comments as a legacy dungeon. Yeah, there's a ghost friend there. Chamber outside the plaza, okay. I still want to see where the sending gate on the other side of the bridge takes you, so let's have a look. So what is it about this bridge that makes it impassable then? I was half expecting a dragon or something to fly and keep us from going any further, but no. Where do you take us, friend? To the exact same place. Okay, that's very interesting. I don't think we're going to proceed in here just yet. I'm loving the eerie vibe here. Frightening as all heck. I'm going to assume this right here is a shortcut exit. The music is eerie as well. Okay. So, now, you know, my goal was to come here. I didn't think we'd make it in this episode, though. But I do think we still might have some loose ends here. So, Or do we want to go straight to the Caelem Ruins? That might be a better idea. Yeah, let's have a look. It actually occurred to me that when we reached the Caelem Ruins, we had basically ran through a bunch of stuff in order to get there, including these zombie friends. We're not going to make the same mistake again in trying to fight them. I believe this carriage here is where we actually ended up getting our hands on the greatsword that we've been using ever since, so definitely worth it, I would say. No, friends, no, just leave them. You're definitely programmed to go after friends who are aggroed. Oh, I think they just hit each other. So yeah, I don't think we secured all of the items that were here, which is why I thought we might as well come back here before actually going to the Caelem Ruins proper. And then yeah, I think we'll save the Redmane Castle for a future episode. Yeah, there's chests and stuff here, which I'm glad we didn't just run by. Don't trust you. Darn birds with teeth. Godless creations. Rune Arc. I would say very nice, but I still have never used those, so I don't know to what extent they are actually useful. I would assume yes, because my understanding, anyways, is that it activates whatever rune we have active in the top left, whatever great rune we have active. So I don't think we've used that at all up to this point, so... So again, I'm thinking about some of the comments from recent episodes where it's essentially been said that you can look at some of the enemies in the open world areas as being environmental hazards as opposed to, you know, targets that you should be taking out no matter what. Again, the people on top of us are vacuuming, so my apologies. Great Bowfriend might come after us here. Okay, we have been here because we've definitely picked up that item. Oh gosh darn it, I think we just went out of the range of Rye Lucaria friends, so whoops. So again, I know I was saying earlier, yeah, I'm going to try to not worry so much about whether we're missing things. The operative word there was try. So, yeah, I don't know to what extent I'll be successful in doing that, but oh wait, have we not? Oh, we have not opened this chest yet. I thought this is where we got the greatsword from. Oh. Okay. It is then. So I guess with those chests, you can open them a second time, but you're not able to get whatever item is in them. Okay, that makes sense. Again, I think the neighbor above us is vacuuming literally right on top of us. So apologies if you can hear that. Thank goodness these doggos are a bit more manageable now compared to the last time we were here, where it was just a complete and utter just gonna use you have to pardon my language for a second, a complete and utter shit show. I don't typically swear, but yeah, I could not think of any better way of putting it than that. It was not pleasant. Okay, so we have seen this. This was when we were running through another entrance to the underground. There's another great bow archer friend there. Did we ever work out how we were supposed to get down there, though? Don't know that we did. I believe that if you were to attempt to jump down from here, you would almost certainly die. But I've been such a poor judge of that up to this point. Gosh darn it, Great Bowfriend is after us already. Yeah, no, it's not happening. So we need one of those jet stream things. Whatever the heck those things are called. Okay, so more or less arrived at the Caelem Ruins, so it wasn't a heck of a lot there in terms of what we missed. And we did more or less, I think, get everything that was here. At the time, I was obviously just completely taken aback by everything and very, very frightened. Which I think was a fair reaction to what I was seeing, given where we were in the game at that point in time. Again, these friends with the red eyes. Is it evening time or something? No, I can't look anymore. Gosh darn it. Because with the demi-humans, I think what happens with them is that past a certain point of the day, their eyes turn red. Don't know if that's what's happening here. Okay, so that's the Forsaken Ruins. We were just there. So really no need to go back in that direction. I think we... don't know to what extent we explored this giant clump here. But I'm okay to not do that. Someone's getting hurt over there. Who that's supposed to be? Probably one of the friends who were on fire. Let's see how many runes we get. Yeah, 25. That's one of the fire friends for sure. Remember how afraid of these friends I was? Oh, gosh darn it. Maybe I should still be afraid of them. I would be less prone to screwing up the backstabs. Ooh, there we go. Right, Lucaria friends, I need you. Okay, so we're back in this horrifying place. Although, again, I don't know to what extent we still need to actually explore here. I feel like we came pretty close to exploring everything we needed to here. Which is, having an understanding of what transpired and how it fits into the larger story of the area, which, we've since accomplished. So I could just move on, but again, despite what I said earlier, I still have this nagging sense that I want to, put everything here out of its misery so that I can say that we actually explored everything with confidence. Stop! Oh, that was weird. But I'll take it. Get wrecked. Wow, we have a lot of runes. 54,000, okay. I don't even think that's enough to level up at this point. Almost. 56,000 we need. What level are we even? Level 96. Yeah, I really did a lot of farming. But I think that's also what happens when, typically I don't record unless I have like at least 45 minutes to an hour to record. And so there were a lot of times where, I maybe had 20 minutes on my hand or something, and or 20 minutes on my hands, and like, okay, what do I do? Well, I could just fart around in Elden Ring for a few minutes and killed some friends and then just sort of go from there. But, obviously I couldn't do anything really substantial because I wasn't recording. So, yeah, just ended up farming and farming and farming. You do a little bit here, a little bit there, and then it all adds up eventually. What are all these friends munching on? But also it's not an accident in the sense that, as I've stated, I have a different idea of what, is fun in this game. And, oh gosh, from soft games more generally. I often try to be not necessarily over-leveled, but well-equipped for the areas in which I'm playing the game. Because, I just don't personally find it super fun when you're under-leveled. And yeah, but, you know, to be fair, I do sometimes, I guess, push it a little bit too far. I've been over-leveled for a lot of this game in the last 5 or 10 episodes. So, you know, I guess to a degree I do understand why people might be annoyed about that. But we've not actually got to that point in the playthrough yet where people will have seen the extent of my over-leveledness. But yeah, it looks like that's more or less it for the Caelem Ruins. I might be missing something very obvious, but yeah, I set that beacon so that I wouldn't miss these stairs, but because I didn't want to send our friends home. But it looks like, ooh, okay, there's a boss here. Okay, that's intriguing. Oh my goodness, okay, that's not good. Oh, thank goodness. I was not expecting, you know, again, I acknowledge that I'm definitely over-leveled at this point, but yeah, I was not expecting that to be a one-shot deal. Visage Shield. Tricksome bronze shield depicting the face of a fire giant. Several tongues leap from its open mouth. The dreadful visage and burning flames are designed to remind one of the horror of facing a fire giant. In other words, this shield has an instructional function. Unique skill, Tongues of Fire. Ready the shield, then spray violent jets of fire from the tongues protruding from its maw. Hold to continue spraying fire. This skill can be used while walking. Okay, that's pretty cool. Okay, I want to say that's it for the Caelem Ruins. So in order then to get into this, I guess, like, chasm here, I assume we'll have to enter it from down here or something like that. This looks like an Everjail. I can't believe we already have access to Redmane Castle. I thought that was going to be quite the ordeal to get there. I'm very interested in hearing the... Maybe justification isn't quite the right word. Just the thought process. Not that we'll necessarily have the thought process of FromSoft in what they were thinking when designing those sending gates. At least that's what I think they're called. I was calling them earlier in the playthrough. I was calling them wormholes, but I've been referring to them as sending gates since then, simply because that's what they are called, I believe, in the messages in the game. So we have already looked through this, if not on camera, then I looked through it off camera. Some of the segments earlier in, so that would have to be where the giants are, I would imagine. And, oh crud. Yeah, so it's there. So yeah, I think that is where that land of the giants is. There's that castle we were at earlier. That's Fort Gael. So this is Ionia, I suppose. Smoldering Wall. So we could follow this. It would take us to the Celia Gateway. Follow this. Takes us to the Impassable Greatbridge. The Impassable Greatbridge that's actually passable. It's possible that in order to get into that chasm, we can just start from the Celia Crystal Tunnel or somewhere thereabouts, or the Celia Understair. So yeah, not sure. Let me look at our list. So we've done Rotview Balcony, that's done. Caelem Ruins, also done. Fort Caelem North, I would say that's also done. Smoldering Wall is where we are now. So yeah, making progress. Hi there, finger reader friend.
You, please, I can read them. Your fingers, please, your fingers. Oh, bless you. Are you one for festivals or flowers? To the south, a grand festival to make the stars turn.
I can't wait.
To the east, the heart and bud of a flower to be. But dare you enter into the heart of the scarlet rot?
To the east, a hardened bud of a flower to be. What the heck does that mean? So, yeah, not sure. Wonder how much of this is actually terrain we can explore. It looks almost like this is just the side of a cliff. Good question. Okay, thanks, friend. I appreciate your guidance as always. That's just Fort Caelem North. Once again, overwhelming. Just the sheer size of the game world. Absolutely overwhelming. So I think that is going to do it for this episode. But thank you all very, very much for joining me, and I will see you in the next one. Whoops, as you can tell, I'm rusty. Bye.